now we're starting for real. So, so in New York City, it's pretty lousy. You know, it's just I don't know when they're going to reopen. That's the thing. But I'm doing more of this, which is nice. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, can you go on like walks out there or like?
Yeah. I've been going to, believe it or not, my favorite place to go to is Greenwood Cemetery, which is right across the street from me. But it's more of like a park. It's more of like a reserve. It's beautiful. There's fountains and ducks and like it's really, really nice. So that's my place of reprieve. Is that the right word?
That's a lovely word. I love reprieve. I love a reprieve. Give me a reprieve. I'll take it.
and I've been doing this. Like this has been helping me stay sane. Doing the podcast, like thank God I have this podcast because I get to reach out to people and then like have some semblance of a conversation, and
totally,
and even more so, like I get to speak to people that aren't in New York because usually it's a very New York based podcast where I'm talking to a lot of New York filmmakers or they're coming in from LA and they're in for a couple of days, but this has really been it's. I don't know how I'm gonna get used to not doing it on Zoom anymore though because my brain has been rewired now. Like, do you feel like your brain has been rewired to a certain extent? Like before I forgot to hit record, you had mentioned something about, you were getting used to things. You were taking things out of your closet and painting it and like doing also. Have you run out of stuff to do around the house and that kind of thing?
Oh, my house is a black hole of projects that like I don't know how they'll ever get done, but so in that regard, like I am keeping myself busy. I mean, I've got this laundry list of things. I'm like they're gonna tear out all the greenery outside and put in new greenery tomorrow, and then I'm putting in a shed. What was the question?
My question is: have you found within your new routine, right? Have you like ran out of things to do, or are you good? Do you still have stuff to do, or are you starting to be like, all right, we need to move on with this?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I feel like there's this impending anxiety. It's about like career stuff and like when does that start up again, and does that start up again, and if it does start up again, is there going to be a big outbreak and on set?
Right.
And yeah, I mean, when I focus on just like the nuclear existence of my life and like making sure that I have food and a dinner and like, I mean, all those things, then I'm sane. It's when I get to the more macro that it like starts eating me alive.
Right. Know? Right. I had a meltdown today. On a scale of 1 to 10, how many meltdowns have you had in, let's say, the past week?
God, how many meltdowns have I had? Well, what constitutes as a meltdown?
I would say like career. Like I definitely had a career-oriented meltdown today. I was like, oh my God. Like it started at 3:30 in the like I woke up at 3:30 in the morning for some reason, and then all of the existential dread came in, and I was like, fuck. Yeah. Like when does it happen to you? Is there a moment in the day when it happens more so?
I feel like nighttime is the toughest time because it's when everything slows down. The things that are keeping you busy are gone, and then you're just kind of like you're left with yourself.
Yeah.
And me, I feel like that takes the most discipline, is like figuring out how to fill that time without looking on CNN or Fox News.
Yeah. I saw some clip today of Cuomo being interviewed on CNN, and they were like, I think everyone's losing their minds because they were like, it was theater. They were bringing out like a big swab, and they were like, was this the swab they used? And it was some like giant cartoonish Q-tip, and I was like, this is the news? This is what's happening? I feel like the world is like collectively losing their minds, like it's just, it's gone to levels of like, so I try to stay away from the news. I read the New York Times because I feel like they're still reputable. Like it's a good source of like down the middle.
Times is probably the only one that I trust. now, and
Yeah.
I just started getting into my sister, like, I paid the however much it is to get and it's so nice to get like things just on in written word. It feels so much more, I don't know, solvent. Like it just doesn't. All of that circus theatricality that we've just like become so accustomed to in this Trump era. It's nice to get something just sort of sobering. You know what I mean?
I've never seen anything like this. But I don't want to get. There's so much I need to unpack with you because I went down a research rabbit hole with you, and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so much fun. I have so much to unpack, but I guess we should talk about this a little bit because it's so current. It's so now. I mean, this is insanity. We literally have a guy who was on the WWF, as a guest. That's our president. That's who's running a country during a pandemic. And I'm like, holy shit. And his cabinet's not so good. So I'm like,
No.
The only one that I like is Fauci, and he's really not part. I mean, like, he was there before him, right? Like, did Trump? Yeah. So like, I like Fauci. I'm like, Fauci's a scientist. I will go to a scientist, a viral scientist, when I want to know my facts about what's going on with this shit.
Yeah.
But the bananas craziness of the theater of it, you are in a show, you're on a show that is fantasy, that's based on a comic book. I couldn't imagine if this can't even be written into a comic book because it's so absurd. It feels like it should be.
You just couldn't write this. It's just so unbelievable, and like the lack of just desire to, I don't know. I mean, my aunt, she was posting things last night about, not wearing a mask and our liberties are being taken away. And, my good my best friend's friend died from this thing. And, he was in his 30s.
Whoa.
I mean, the fact that we're even taking a minute to like the reality is we just don't know. Like, why can't everyone just accept right now that we don't have the answers? So let's all be a little extra. Like, let's just be a little extra right now, and then we can start like taking things away. But just be like, do a little too much. Like, clean your hands a little too much right now. You know what I mean? Yeah,
and I don't get the whole like, I'm not wearing this mask because it's taking away my freedom. Well, what about like, you're supposed to wear a shirt if you go into a public place? You're supposed to wear pants, no shoes, no shirt, no service. Like, what? Yeah. What's the difference? Like, just put a mask on. It's not, and it's It's really the difference between you being on a respirator, which they found out now the respirators might actually kill you if you get this thing.
They found that out.
Yeah, they literally are like, yeah, the thing that we're putting you on in the hospital is gonna kill you. I'm like, oh my God, I give up with this thing. And now, so wait, let's before we go into everything, you know someone who was a friend of a friend that died of it in their 30s. Were they totally healthy? What was going on? Was there some precondition?
So the guy that died, I don't know, but he's my very, very good friend's friend, and he had diabetes and he had something else. So he died. He had underlying conditions. There was another guy. I lived with this girl that I actually was born in the house next to her. So we've been lifelong friends, and we were roommates for about 2 years. And the guy that moved in after me, he's an actor in his 30s, had just finished a movie where he was in the military, so he was in tip-top shape. He went into the ICU, and he got out. He's fine now, but I mean, to say this is no joke is a joke. I mean,
it's serious. I mean, it is
no joke. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally made sense. What's scary is that we just don't know. Like, it's affecting so many different people in so many different ways. It's affecting healthy people. It's affecting sick people. And, our industry is getting just decimated because we don't know when filming can resume. We don't know when everything's up in the air. It's like, well, I don't know how many people are going to be allowed on set. all this sort of stuff that's up in the air. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I got to a point today where I was like, I'm starting to get antsy for things to reopen, but then I'm also like, but like the second wave, like there's going to be that second wave of mutated virus that I think everyone's really afraid of.
Totally. Well, in our profession requires a lot of travel. I mean, the last job that I just did, I was on a plane twice a week, and I've been asking myself, like, what if I got a dream job, and would I be willing to risk my life for that dream job? And I guess I would. I don't know. Like,
I would.
Would you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I'd be like, fucking put me on the fucking plane. You know what I mean? Put me on the goddamn plane. Like if someone's who is a all right, now we'll get into it. Who is a dream director that you were like, I want to work with this person?
Jonathan Glazer.
Oh, he's
Did you
great.
see Birth?
What was it?
Birth.
No, is it good?
I mean, people either love it, or like despise it. But it's about Nicole Kidman. It's about Nicole Kidman. Nicole Kidman, her husband dies, and 10 years later, this 10-year-old boy shows up in her Upper West Side, bourgeois life, and says, I am the reincarnation of your dead husband. And it's the most like gorgeous, chilling, strange film. The cinematography is just like,
yeah.
I want to watch it like right now. I've seen it probably 10 times.
Oh, I have to see it. I'm gonna watch it as soon as we're done. That'll be my movie for tonight because that's all I do is I watch so many. Have you been watching a lot of movies in quarantine, or like brushing up on acting, or like reading? I've been reading a lot of books about directing. I've been reading a lot of books about specific scripts I'm working on. Like I've taken this time to kind of better myself as a director and as a writer. Have you been doing any of that?
I've been writing, and I made I was up in Vancouver finishing Batwoman.
Mm-hmm.
On like the last day we were filming the makeshift finale, and I wrapped at 8:30 a.m. This was like the day that Trump had declared the national emergency and they shut down the borders, and we decided to like stay and shoot the shit. And so then I wrapped at 8:30 in the morning, and then I got on a Greyhound bus and took the Greyhound bus across the border with Lysol wipes, holding Lysol wipes up to my face as I went into Seattle. I'm getting to the point here. But so then I'm with my sister and her family, and we made a film on my iPhone with my nephews that I'm actually super stoked about. It's about a kid who's like sort of neglected by his parents, and he's a magician. And then he meets this mime, and then he hides this mime in his furnace downstairs, and they do magic tricks at night. And it's a story of sort of the Pied Piper. Anyway, I've got to get to editing that. But I'm juggling a lot of different projects right now, mostly on my house. But yes.
That sounds like I want to see this film. I feel like it could easily be a Vimeo staff pick, like immediately. I do too. It's so amazing. That sounds amazing. You got to release that.
It was, and my nephew was so dead set. He doesn't know shit about mimes. He's 7 years old, and what he was like, it was an incredible performance. I just was so blown away by him. Both my nephews, if they're listening, they both are just absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, it's very sort of like French Nouveau kind of. I
love French New Wave, which gets me to where we start at this whole thing. So, I'm digging through a lot of your interviews and things, and I found one where they talk about you, or you talk about yourself growing up in Utah.
Yeah.
Being Mormon and also being gay. And I'm thinking that's a great place to start because 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 I mean, what? Tell me at the moment you realized, okay, I am a gay man. When does that happen? And you're in a very repressive, upbringing, I would assume. Yeah. So just walk me through some of that.
Well, I mean, it was everybody was my friends were telling me I was gay before I knew I was, which I think is kind of rude. I mean, I think that's kind of if you don't know and people like, that's very sort of traumatizing, especially I think in the early 90s or early 80s. But I remember like when I was 13, I was trying to go to bed and I couldn't stop thinking about this kid, Peter, in my class. I'll leave his last name out. And I was just tossing and turning and I couldn't get this guy out of my head. And it was devastating to me because when in the Mormon religion, when you're is it 11, you get the priesthood. And I remember my bishop, who you only ever see, he's just always on the pulpit. He's sort of this Christ-like figure who, everyone just reveres, which I don't really know why they're so highly regarded. It's not like they have many credentials or anything. But he calls me into his office, and I'm like a little 11-year-old boy, and he proceeds to talk to me about sex and masturbation, gives me these pamphlets on masturbation and homosexuality. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, just imagine being an 11-year-old kid with this stranger man giving you a really inappropriate conversation about the birds and the bees and why you shouldn't be touching yourself and, all that kind of stuff.
That's almost more traumatizing than the fucking friends saying you're gay. You know what I mean? Saying, oh, you're gay. You know what I mean? Like, how traumatizing is that to have an older man just being like, here's this stuff about your body and what you should and shouldn't be doing with it. That's insane.
Yeah, that was, I mean, it looking back, you're like, damn, that was so weird. But at the time, it's just everybody's just doing it. And so you just think, well, this is how it's supposed to go. But it wasn't until I was 18, actually, and I had a dream. And this old woman came up to me and she said, you're gay, and you have to be honest about the fact that you're gay. And I started slowly telling people. And my dad, I just had the most fabulous father. He was an immigration attorney, but he designed the child abuse advocacy program in Utah. Not solely, but he was a part of it.
Right.
And he delivered all of the signatures to the church office building of the Mormon church. Everyone in Utah that was against Prop 8. And I told him. I later told my mother. My mother's a whole different. She later joined a cult, and it just, and they have a whole thing about gay people. But
yeah,
I mean, it's been a journey going through it, leaving the Mormon church and kind of being gay.
I could imagine. But there was something that happens in the third grade. You wrote a play called How Magic Came to Be. And so I wanted to talk about that because I feel like third grade is the time for a lot of us that we start to think creatively. That happened to me too. Like I was like, I knew that I wanted to perform, and I wanted to be in front of people. So I started getting into plays and all that kind of stuff. What happens with How Magic Came to Be? Walk me through that moment in third grade where you were like, I have a calling, or I want to do this.
I don't know why I wrote that thing. I read it like I read it last year. It's so funny. It's like I wouldn't even know it. Maybe I'll dig it up and send it to you. It's like 2 pages long, and it's like, there's no second act, and there's not really a third act either. It's all wrapped up in one sentence. But there's a Zeus and Athena, and I don't know. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to put on my mom's nightgowns, and my mom would chase me around the house, and I would lock myself in rooms because I was adamant at wearing. It wasn't really gowns. I think it was more like capes and things. Like I just like it was like regality. There was and it was also gowns too. But it was all the things. I just think that I just always was just very, very adamant at doing this. Since I was born, really. I really do. I never questioned being an actor until I became like a professional actor, until I like saw the cogs and wheels of what it really requires to do it, because it takes a lot.
Yeah, it's a business, and it's a crazy business, and it takes a lot, but thank God you're having a lot of success, which is great, and well deserved, because you're very good. You're really good. So it is deserved. What you're getting is deserved, but you're right, it is a business, and when you start to get into it, you definitely have those questions, like when you're young and kind of full of hubris and not hubris but confidence, you go and then you get into the audition process, you get into all that kind of stuff, you get into the, like you said, the cogs of the wheels of everything, and you're like, holy shit, like, oh, I'm not too this, or I'm too this, or I'm not enough this, or maybe I'm this. What I was really impressed though about your reel, and with the clips that I was able to watch, besides the performance in Mother's Little Helpers, which is it blew me away. You're fantastic in that movie. We'll get to that. You have quite a bit of range. You go from Mouse, which are currently in Batwoman, to The Leftovers, and then you play a neo-Nazi, which I was like, who's in prison, and then you play a drag queen who is also a gun-toting drag queen. I'm like, this man has so much range. Where do you think those characters come from?
First of all, that was all very nice. Thank you. That was a really nice segue into all that. I appreciate it.
It's impressive. I was really, as a director, you look at actors in a certain way, and you see them, and you can see what they do. And I love actors because I don't do that, And then I see you in all these roles, and I'm like, that's not it's not easy. And you definitely are. You're different in every one. There's a little thing in your eyes that's different in each character, And that's what I find so impressive about acting, is that, whoa, holy shit, they have that switch, like they got that thing. They could just switch it on and off. So when you were a kid, was your imagination big? Were you playing a lot in different characters? Like, obviously, putting on, like you said, the cape of the nightgown, which I think all little boys do. All little boys, whether they grow up to be straight or gay or whatever, I feel like there's that curiosity of like, I wonder what I'd look like in my mom's heels. My mom caught me putting on her heels when I was a kid. And then because I was curious, and she was like, "It's all right. You can walk around in them. You can try. You can see if that suits you. And it turns out I didn't like it, because I was like, they're too uncomfortable. But I was like, ooh, they make me look nice. So I feel like all little boys have that curiosity in them. Yeah. But to get back to my question is, was there a grand imagination and kind of a play in you that wanted to tell stories and imagine and kind of get lost into worlds?
I guess so. I really love stories. I mean, I've been doing this whole like press thing, and I just keep saying like the same answers over and over again. But I always go to, I'm a big lover of story. I mean, I've said that like so many fucking times. But I really do love story, and I don't look at this stuff as though it's like the character. Like I don't like. Yeah, there's the accent or the heels or the hat or like whatever. It doesn't. When I can get into the story of a person, which I find very interesting. I think the story of me is really interesting. I think that, I think we all have a very interesting story, and I think that's always just been very intriguing to me. My dad always said, you know, you've said it like it was so profound, but it actually is like we're all the walking wounded.
Ooh.
And
I like that a lot. That's great.
And he always, and it just pissed me off so much. He'd always say, you know, look at it from the other person's perspective. Well, you take a minute and look at it from the other person's perspective. And I'm like, fuck you, I'm right. But it's true. I mean, we have to do a better job. We all have to do a better job of looking at it from the other person's perspective. And we're all the walking fucking wounded, and we have to do a better job at seeing that as well. And I guess to me, with all this acting shit, it's a what is the word? It's a process of that. It's an exercise. Exercise was the word. I found it. Yeah.
So where do you really start getting into acting in Utah, or getting out of Utah and being like, all right, I'm out of here. Like I gotta leave, which is, I would imagine, a hard place to leave, not because of the culture, but because of it's so beautiful there. That is one thing I know. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. So when were you like, fuck this, I'm out, I gotta do something else?
Well, first I went to, I mean, when I was 15, I drove my parents crazy. I was really adamant at going to performing arts boarding school. So I left Utah then when I was 16, and that was probably the worst decision I've ever made in my life. was going to boarding school. I mean, right when I got there, it was just like, what the fuck have I done?
What's boarding school like? Hold on a second. What the fuck is boarding school like? Can we talk about that for a minute?
Sure, yeah. It's in Michigan, Interlochen Arts Academy. Most people loved it, but I couldn't tell you a single good thing about it for myself. I had a calendar that I would mark off every single day, and there were like 5-day periods where I would like intentionally not mark it off so that I could have that satisfaction of marking 5 days off in a row. It just was a very it was very competitive, which I wasn't prepared for at the age of 16. I wanted to put on my mom's nightgown. I didn't want to put on my mom's nightgown when I was 16. I promise you. I promise you I did not. No, but I mean, I was in sort of a more exploratory phase, I think, in my progression or whatever. And I wasn't prepared for the cutthroat. It was like entering the real world. It was kind of like how it felt when I moved to LA, which maybe was good that I went to Interlochen, because that it prepared me for the outside world a little bit better. But I don't know. I went right when I turned 18, I booked this TV show, and then I booked this movie. And I thought I was a superstar, and I immediately moved to LA. I booked my first job when I moved to LA on Angel, which was like the spinoff of Buffy.
Oh, yeah.
And my fourth audition was for VIP with Pamela Anderson.
Wow.
Where I played twin brother and sister, and then the brother kidnaps the sister, and then he poses as the sister so that he can get this $1 billion chocolate formula. And then I didn't work for like 4 years.
Yeah, which is that isn't that like how it goes in LA? Like you get there, it's like, oh shit, I'm getting all this stuff, and then you don't work for like you said, like 4 to 5 years. What happens in that 4-year period for you? Are you freaking out? Or are you like, all right, well, were you like, I'm done, or did you keep going on auditions and like keep trying?
I kept going on auditions. I kept trying. It was really hard on me. I kind of lost myself during that period. How long have you been in the industry?
Oh, not very long. I was a musician for years, and then, but again, I'm a New York filmmaker. I'm like the Safdie brothers. I take a camera and I go out with no crew and I make movies. You know what I mean? And then,
Cool.
Yeah, I'm like one of those filmmakers. I'm not. Okay. I if you want to talk like industry standard stuff, like I talk to filmmakers who are like using words that I don't know, you know what I mean? But I make good movies. That's what I know. So I'm like, if I make good movies and people love them, then I should be doing this no matter how it's happened. No matter how it happens. Right. So to answer your question, 2015 is when I started, believe it or not, making films. Yeah. But since then I've made 3 short films and a feature-length documentary, and so it's been a huge, 5 years. I've accomplished more in 5 years because it bit me, and I was like, oh my God, I got to be a filmmaker now, because I was doing photography. Yeah. Cool. I was kind of like, I went through this whole period of not knowing what I was going to do in life, and then all of a sudden I fell ass backwards into photography, and then photography led to filmmaking, which I feel is the best progression. So that long story long, that's how long I've been in the business. Why do you ask?
Well, I mean, the industry is just really, it is just so different from like the early 2000s. I feel like when I first moved here, I felt like everybody was just sort of telling me that I had to be more like Chad Michael Murray or something. And so I was just kind of doing everything I could, and I felt like a drag queen. Like it was not making sense. And at a certain point, I left LA. I drove up the coast, and I lived on a compound for a year, pressing flowers to earn my keep and smoking pot all day long. And
was it like a compound, like a? Was it like a cult? What was it?
No.
Okay.
No, it was this awesome family that I've known my entire life, and they have a flower pressing company that, so then all these pothead kids would, show up and either live in tents or in whatever, stray bed was around the place. And you'd have to press a certain number of pages of flowers per day. It just in order to stay there, or you'd have to pay them something. But it was that was a really good time for me. It reminded me that I did want to do this, and I feel like I've just been kind of stubbornly kind of hacking through the weeds of, this industry. And what's lovely about this era in particular is that I feel like there's more of a appreciation for the uniqueness of people. I don't think it's as much about type or fitting into a particular archetype. I think people write for people more now.
Totally.
For specific people,
Yes, and I was going to say too that I feel like, when you were kicking around doing like VIP and all that stuff, there's still like queer cinema was there, and voices in queer cinema were there. You had Gus Van Sant and to a grander extent, you had Roger Waters. Not Roger Waters. Mustache. John Waters. Jesus Christ, I'm gonna get a spanking from the film community for that. But I feel like now we're sort of in this renaissance where it's more you want more individual voices. There's more of a call for, well, if you like, it was how can I say this? like for Brokeback Mountain, they get two straight actors because it was a stretch for them to play gay. But now it's more like, well, now we want actual gay men and women playing in these roles because it's like that's their story, you know?
Yeah.
The stories belong to the culture.
Like Jared Leto, like, you know, pulling that off, it is a little ridiculous now. I mean, when you like, you know, this like super smoking hot white guy.
Right. Well, and then, you know, for me, it would have been more interesting to see you in that role. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been more interesting to see someone who actually has that experience behind them rather than I have to write a diary and go to this place to be this person. You know, it's going to come from a much stronger place. I know, bring it back to Leto for a second. It was funny because I remember reading one review of the movie and they actually bashed it, and they were like, you know, his performance is going to look like Mammy from Gone with the Wind in like 20 years.
Well, when I did drag last year. I did it with a bunch of like winners of RuPaul's Drag Race. There was like Sharon Needles and Ginger Minge, who were my backup dancers. Well, and that was really intimidating because they lived their lives doing this, and I'm like this asshole being like, so why do you do drag? Like, you know what I mean? But they're like, who the fuck is this guy? You know? But
I still feel like you are closer to the culture. Do you know what I mean? Plus you did it really well. And the clip that I saw, I'm so sorry, I didn't know what it was from. What was that one that you played where you played the gun-toting drag queen?
It was on Good Behavior. It was TNT. It was with Michelle Dockery. Yeah, I mean, it was that was just the most wild ride. It was like 3 weeks of my life, and they built this incredible bar, and it was you know, I learned a whole dance number with what is her name? She's in Black Eyed Peas.
Oh, Fergie?
Fergie's choreographer was choreographing It's Raining Men for me, where like Ginger Minge and Sharon Needles are dancing around me. But yeah, that was really a surreal experience. I remember one night I was on by the freeway in my onesie with a bottle of wine, calling my sister, being like, Carrie, I can't do this. I get it.
Was there any access when you were growing up to any sort of queer cinema? Were you exposed to it at any point, like you know, like a Gus Van Sant or John Waters?
Like TLA films. Remember TLA?
Walk me through them. Wait, what's TLA?
They were always like coming out stories.
Okay.
That I was never really into. That never really, like, a coming out story. I don't know. I feel like I guess I just feel like there were so many of them at the time, and they were all telling the same story. It wasn't like adding anything new to it from my perspective. And that's, you know, I mean, I in no way know all the. I'm not like well versed in. Yeah, I'm better. I'm more versed in gay cinema, but. No, I don't think that I didn't have a big knowledge of queer cinema at the time.
Yeah. So what were you looking towards for inspiration and sort of how are you getting interested in stories, you know, as you're watching films and you're kind of studying acting, and what was speaking to you?
Phantom of the Opera was like enormous to me. It was my soul. I put on before magic came to be. Yeah, actually, I need to retool my whole like my how magic came to be story, because it really, we put on Phantom of the Opera when I was 9 years old in my neighborhood, and we lip synced to the whole thing, and like all the neighbors came around, and then my whole family went to England, and we went and saw Phantom of the Opera like right after that. I remember Roswell, that WB series really spoke to my soul. Something about them being alien, and I've always kind of felt like an alien myself.
Yeah, and that show, I feel like, really spoke to people who felt like outcasts. and didn't have a
Yeah.
place in society. Like you said, you feel alien, you know?
Yeah, but they were beautiful and they were sensitive and powerful. I mean, it's funny being in Batwoman. I don't totally get it. I don't totally get why people are so into it. I respect it, but the closest thing that I can come to in understanding it is my connection to Roswell. Roswell's why I moved to LA. I mean, I wanted to be on Roswell.
and then you ended up being on a few CW shows, because I believe Roswell.
It's very surprising to me. Isn't it a little surprising to you?
I feel like, but from what I've seen from you, you know, there's TV acting, and then there's like really good like you definitely elevate the scenes that you're in. I'll say that, you know, like you elevate the genre a bit, because sometimes when you're watching something that's TV, it's like, oh, well, it's TV, you know, and you're not expecting depth. Not to sound pretentious or rude, but you know, I mean, like sometimes it's a little surface, but with you, there's a lot of depth to the characters that you're playing, and I really appreciated that every time I was watching a clip or really like, and I was really getting into it. I'm like, man, now I want to watch all these shows. So, you know, you have The Leftovers, you have The Messengers, and then The After, which is Chris Carter, who's X-Files, which is like, he's a legend.
Yeah.
What was it like working with him?
It was. Hold on, I'm gonna get some coffee.
Yeah, no, this is. You have to get more coffee? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. I'm back. It was a totally unbelievable experience. I auditioned. It was going to be a one-day non-speaking role where they wanted me to shave my head. And I was in New York, and I had quit acting. And I got this call to go in and do this thing, and I was like, fuck it. And they took that tape that I did once when I was in New York and offered me a series regular role where the whole show was a telling of Dante's Inferno. And they changed the whole story to be where I'm the devil and I play a different character in every episode. So it was this unbelievable opportunity, like that I just never, ever saw coming at all. And when I got to filming in the pilot, I mean, you know, I'm writing all my friends and family being like, please watch this, that needs to get more viewership so that it will, you know, and they watch this, and I'm in like the last 4 seconds of the show, and I'm naked, and from head to toe, they put on 12 hours of makeup, where after the second hour, I had to be standing naked. And they painted my dick. They painted everything. And there was this, and you know, we're in the main trailer, so there's people coming in and out all the time, and I'm just standing there naked. It's like 5 makeup artists are just going like this to me all day long. And we have to film out at Griffith Park at the end of the night. It's a night shoot, and I can't wear a coat because I've got all this makeup on. Everybody's wanting to take a picture of me. The makeup artists are poking me with these pencils, and I have to, so the girl shoots me, and I fall. I can't believe I'm telling the story. I'm just going to tell the story. So this girl, she shoots me in the story, and I fall back, and I fall into this hay. And the makeup artists are just poking me. So I fall back into this hay, and I have hay all on my back. And the makeup artists are sweeping the hay off my back, and I feel this tugging in my ass crack. And one of the makeup artists is picking hay out of my ass. I go, excuse me, I can get that. And she goes, oh, don't worry, honey, I'm using a Q-tip. I'm like, I'm not worried about you.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. So
that's what it's like.
Yeah. So that's what working with Chris Carter's like. So you almost quit acting right before that?
Yeah, I've had a few very dry spells in my career. I think maybe 2 or 3. Yeah. Where, and then it's been odd every single time. There's just something that's like just a life-changing opportunity that just pops up that popped out of nowhere, and I just joined the ride.
So does that all lead to all of the television work that you did up until Batgirl, like Leftovers and The Messengers was a television show, right?
Yeah, it was on the CW. It's on Netflix now.
Yeah. So that led to everything, right? So it was kind of like you had this you were reinvigorated in your career through that show.
Through The Messengers or
No,
through the After?
through I'm sorry, through the After.
Yeah, the After. Well, I mean, I feel like the biggest hurdle in all of this is just believing that you can do it. And a lot of that just comes from, I think, well, if I did that, then I can do this. And I think that you need a lot of reflection back at you, kind of I mean, at least I do, from your history, being able to be like, well, if I did that, I can do this. And that, I mean, that's a really unbelievable story. Chris Carter pulls me out of a one-day non-speaking role and turns it into like this amazing actor's dream where I get to play everything.
But I get it, because as a director, you have a thing. You've got a thing, and it's a good thing, So anytime you think of quitting acting ever again, just get in touch with me. I'll write you something. You fly out to New York, and we'll just run and gun a fucking super indie film for you, so you can keep going, because I need you to keep making shit.
I'm in.
So this all leads. I mean, you're also writing a lot during this time. Plus One gets into Cannes. I don't know if cons. Some people say con or cans. However,
it really feels like con too. When you get there, you're like, oh, this is con.
Yeah, this isn't Cannes. This is con. I've been there. I went to the Marché du Film for one of my films. We were trying to sell it at the film market. My very first film.
Oh, okay. Well, what was your experience? Did you like it?
My funny story about cons is that I went and I was so green, I didn't know that you had to bring a tuxedo if you want to go to the all the films.
Oh yeah.
So right. So before Woody Allen was kind of like ousted from the business, one of his movies had come out. So it was screening, and I grew up watching Woody Allen, so I was like, yes, I want to go see this movie. And the guy was like, great, just grab your tuxedo. Here's 2 free tickets. I said, what tuxedo? And he was like, you didn't bring your fucking tuxedo? Meanwhile, I have a tuxedo. And I was like, no, are you serious? So I was like, can I get a tuxedo? And he was like, not. He's like, it's tonight. Where are you gonna get a tuxedo?
Oh, yeah.
But there was a Zara that had one that was like right in town, and I was like, I didn't know. Yeah. So I learned you never go to Cannes without a tuxedo.
Well, and I had kind of a makeshift tuxedo, but like they will not let you in.
Yeah,
it has got to be a legitimate tuxedo, like with the satin strip down the side of the bag. Got to be the real deal.
So let's take it back there for a second. I mean, I don't want to keep you too long. I always try to keep it to an hour, but we might go over a little bit because we're having a good chat here. So talk to me about the Cannes experience and what happened to Plus One. Plus One was yours, right? You conceived it and you wrote it.
Yeah, it was. We've actually been talking about bringing it back. Did you see it? You didn't see it, did you?
No, I had such a crazy week, and I usually like to do. Now that I'm in,
it's not like.
Thank you. Well, I've been reading a lot of books about interviewing people, and I actually found it really disrespectful if I go into. I like to go into an interview with a good amount of information, but not so much where I'm not surprised when you talk about something. So. But you had such a body of work that I was like, fuck, how do I cover this? And I had just this afternoon to do it because I had such a crazy week. I had more interviews this week. Long story long, again, I didn't get a chance to see it, but I'll watch it after.
It's on my website. You can watch it there. I mean, we made it when I was 22 or something, and we snuck into a hotel room. My friend Sam and we wanted to do this thing about 2 bougie kids, and in LA, and we just shot it over the course of one night. They were going to make The Informers, the movie, and I was really obsessed with Bret Easton Ellis at the time. So I did this as kind of an audition tape, and I mean, you know, when I watch it, it's like, you know, these little 22-year-old like munchkins making this thing. It's pretty fun. Like, it's pretty great that we were able to kind of put this together. But yeah, we submitted it to Cannes and it got in.
What?
But it was, you know, one of the girls that was in it, she didn't have a badge that we had. And just the way that she was treated as opposed to us just made me really angry. Like, you know, I was like, she's in the movie. Like, can you treat her like a person? Could you treat her like a person? But, you know, it's always, you know, just from your own lens. And I know that people go and have the most incredible time. And I'm sure that I could go and have the most incredible time. But also when you're young, probably entitled, and, you know, you walk into this really big film festival, it can have its own specific color to it. But yeah, it was a very interesting time. I remember scaling walls, trying to get into parties. Getting into parties was such a big thing. Like, how do I get into the party?
I mean, but the parties are insane because you could literally end up on a boat with like the biggest producer in Europe or Hollywood, and you're like, how the fuck did I get into this party? But that's the magic of Cannes. Like, everything happens at Cannes, and then
everything happens at Cannes.
Everything happens again, and then Cannes at night it's the south of France at night. You're just walking through and everyone's out on the streets and having fun and cobblestone streets. It's like, it's a surreal feeling. You know, everyone's in tuxedos. Yeah. It's nuts. It's amazing. You know, and it was funny because I just finished the David Lynch biography, which is fantastic. And then I saw that you made a film that's David Lynch and
someone else just brought that up last week. It's not what you think it is.
But I thought it was great that you have these two non-commercial. Who is it?
Crispin Glover and David Lynch.
That's it, Crispin Glover, David. So yeah, these two people who are fiercely like non-commercial, trying to break it to make a commercial film, right? Like that is funny.
No, that is very funny. I hadn't actually thought about it that way. Yeah, no, that's very. I mean, I played a waiter in it. It was my friend who played David Lynch and the guy who played Crispin Glover are so good at it. They are so spectacular at those characters, but it's not what you think it is.
Well, then what is it? What is it? Tell me what it is.
It's just kind of I don't want to. It's skits. It's very skitty.
Okay, gotcha. Got it. We'll leave it at that. So bouncing ahead now, I mean, now we're at two big moments in your life, which is Batwoman and Mother's Little Helpers. My introduction to you is from Mother's Little Helpers, and I spoke to Kestrin, and, you know, I said, look, anyone who's in that movie who wants to talk to me, like, please, like, I would love to speak to any of them. And then when she said Sam, I'm like, absolutely, Sam. I love that movie. I love your performance in that movie so much. There are so many great moments, like when you're talking to, I don't know if it's your sponsor or your parole officer.
My parole officer.
The parole officer. There's such a wonderful, real, believable, flirtatious vibe between the two of them. You know, and the parole officer it feels like, well, maybe he is, maybe he's not. But then there's all these innuendos, and you can clearly tell that you have caught major feelings for him. And, you know, and it was so beautifully nuanced, those scenes. I'm assuming, you know, you were not doing them together because they're all over the phone. Where did you pull from for that feeling and just for his character in general? I mean, addict. You know, you play an addict very well. I don't know if you had issues with addiction. I did. And of course, if it's something you don't want to talk about, you don't have to. But, you know, I had issues with addiction, and I was like, this is very close to how an addict is, especially when you would lose your shit, you know? Yeah. So talk to me about developing that character, because he's wonderful.
Well, I have addiction in my family. So I had kind of that to draw from. mainly, mainly so much of it was just Kestrin had such a awesome layout of the entire story. And, I just remember like those scenes with Louise. I think there's such a nice reprieve. Oh, bringing it back to reprieve. There's such a nice reprieve from all of the sort of family tension and everything that, I mean, when you get in with your family, you're kind of trapped you're trapped by the ideas of what they have of the ideas they have of who you are as a person. And Luis, the parole officer, he's a break from all of that. And I think that it's so necessary in this story to kind of break away from the family, and he kind of offers that. But Kestrin just had such a good, clear vision of what that relationship was like. And she really gave us just the freedom she's like, I just kind of want it to feel this way. A good director doesn't give you too much. You know what I mean? They don't hammer something over. They'll drop something in the bowl and then they'll let you, there's good directors, great. I've worked with excellent directors that have micromanaged the shit out of me. But, if you're in a collaborative experience where they just drop something in the bowl and then they see how it plays out. All of those scenes were shot in one day. And we were basically doing the scene. I mean, he was probably 10 feet away from me in another car, and we had two cameras going on at the same time, and we just improvised everything is improvised in the film. We just kind of made up on the fly.
Wow.
Which I think when I watched it with my sister, I was a little surprised that it doesn't seem like an improv movie to me.
No, I thought it was all scripted. It's so good. Wow. That makes me even more impressed. Is that why you have co-writing credit on the film because of the improv?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, I wrote all my lines in the moment. Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow, I have so much more, I'm so much more awe-filled now about the way it was executed. That's really impressive. The first short that I did the weekend was all improv. So that's why I did the same thing. I gave them writing credit too. I'm like, I gave them the outline, but there was so is that what Kestrin did? Did she kind of give you an outline and give you little seedlings of what she wanted feeling wise and then just shot it?
A very specific outline. I mean, it was really combed through, and she'd been working on it for a long time. And there were times where I'd be like, I feel like it's more like this, or I feel like it's more like that. And there were times where she'd be like, no, it is this. And, once you start doing it, you're like, oh, you're right. It is that. Okay. I was very certain it was this, but yeah, I mean, I don't know why that's so rare. I don't know why. I think it's very sad to me the way that writing credits get abused in this industry. I feel like people want writing credit when they shouldn't get it, and in this circumstance, I thought it was just overly generous that we got them. But I think it was really important to her that everyone really felt like they held stock in it, and that I think you're going to get more from people if you give them more. You know what I mean? And I think that we have managed to. I mean, we've been on this road with this film it's coming up on 2 years now, and we're a total family. I mean, we talk all the time. I was at Kestrin's house yesterday having a beer, and Melanie and Milana, Brita, we are kind of a family. I talked to Brita yesterday on the phone, and yeah, I feel like that was really generous on Kestrin's part, and I think it was also it was intelligent on her part, because I think that it made us all feel like we held stock in the piece,
Yeah, and you can tell, and when you said you became a family, I think that you could see that you became a family while acting together. It really feels. Yeah. it feels like you're all related, you know. And
Oh yeah,
that casting, I mean, it's really one fuck of a cast. I mean, everyone is so great in it.
it's a really, it's everyone is so specifically them. Brita is just a diamond in it, I think.
Oh
And
yeah.
when I was watching it with my sister, that line when Melanie she goes into a coma and Brita picks up a phone and she's like, "Okay, I don't even understand how to use a cell phone." I just think that's the most. I don't even understand.
Yeah. And one of the most relevant moments was when they're doing Google Hangouts, because I'm like, that's the world we're all living in right now. We're all living in that universe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's oddly so much more relevant and timely than we ever meant it to be. Me and with my ankle bracelet being stuck. I mean, when I was up with my sister, I totally had there's a moment for those who haven't seen it, there's a moment in the film where I'm outside screaming, "I can't leave, I can't stay, I can't get high." And I had that same exact thing when I was with my sister. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that feeling too. I remember when I first got sober, I had so many of those feelings. So I really related to him so much. I related to his character when you really nailed not being able to deal with the situation because you can't fucking get loaded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I felt that from his character and from your character, from the character you created and you and Keston helped, make together, and it's wonderful. Do you enjoy? Oh, you're welcome. Do you enjoy? Obviously, they're two different animals, but television versus film. I mean, you've had such a long now career with television. There's a system to it. There's a structure to it. It's faster.
Yeah.
It's less. It's not. I don't want to say it's less personal, but it's very like, okay, this is what we got to do. Boom, 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 boom. Crank it out. We got this amount of time. Do you have aspects of each thing, movies versus television, that you enjoy about each one of them?
There's particularly in network television, it's a little foreign to me, just the way that like costume fittings go and the way that your first hair consultation will go, where they kind of just like put things on you and like you're kind of like you're like a Barbie, and figuring out. So it's a little strange to me because I guess I'm a little more like inside. I try and find the story and then but with television, it is so fast and there are so many departments and the department heads, and they all have such a specific role to do. And they've got to work out. They are on a conveyor belt more than anyone. They have to get you done, and they have to get this person done, and that person done. And so there isn't the luxury of, every act. It's just not really realistic that every actor can come in and be like, "I saw this scarf the other day," and they got to crank it out. But with Batwoman. When I went in, it was from the very beginning. It was 8 hair tests and 8 makeup tests, and I got 10 hours worth of hair extensions put in my head, and it was very alien. It was very foreign to me. But over time, as the series progressed, you start developing those relationships in the way that you do in film with the people, and the collaboration does start to unfold over time. I don't know why I'm talking so much about hair and makeup, but it is such a, when you start a project, you're being introduced to the character yourself. They're kind of foreign to you as well. And so you're just pulling out these little, this feels right, or that feels wrong, or, you're just kind of going off of whatever little instincts you have at the moment. So I guess film is more natural to me in that regard. But I enjoy the speed of television. I enjoy it's kind of a bummer sometimes because you'll watch some of your stuff and you're like, yeah, I didn't really have that figured out yet. yeah, I enjoy the cranking it out. There's a lot of adrenaline in that. In knowing that you truly do only have like 3 takes. Batwoman, I was, when I started going into it, there was a point when I was like, okay, I'm going to get 1 take. I'm going to get 1 take in this, and I've got to fucking nail it. And there was something, because there's just so many stunts and explosions and all of these things. So I don't know. There's something that I dig about that, and in a lot of ways that's kind of like a Kestrel's movie. We shot that movie in 8 days, but for some reason it felt like we had so much time to work it out. Maybe just because we had so much, it was such a gestation.
Yeah,
it was a gestation as we were creating it. You know what I mean?
It's also Castron. She's so flowy. She's so like she's got this she's got this wonderful spirit where she makes you feel like there's a lot, like even if there's a little bit of time, you just feel like there's a lot of time. Like she has this free spirit. I remember when we were talking, she's like, yeah, I'm like a type A free spirit.
Super Virgo, like Virgo free spirit.
Yeah, exactly. But she knows her shit. Like she's got Post-its of the whole movie storyboarded out. So it's like she knows her shit. She goes in prepared, and that helps her to create this kind of relaxed set. So, and that really comes across. But so to stay on Batwoman for a second, I don't know if you can talk about this. Because I just read news today that we could cut this out too if we can't talk about it. But there was a shift in casting today. That's all I can say. Right.
There was a shift in casting.
Yeah, which was by choice. Are you? I mean, right now I'm assuming everything's on hold for the show itself. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, and again, if you can't, we don't have to talk about this. But first, let's talk about Mouse. Mouse is the first openly gay DC. That's important. Let's talk about your character first.
Okay.
Mouse is the first openly gay DC character, right? That was specifically written for this show, or no?
No, I'm not. It hasn't been discussed if I'm gay. Ruby's character was the first lesbian superhero.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of why the show was a big deal, and it is. I think that is a big deal. There's a lot of gay kids out. Like I was gay. I didn't have that when I was growing up. So that is a big deal. And in discussing the thing about Ruby, I think it's a big role to fill, to be the first of anything.
Yeah.
And she was always very professional and lovely with me. And all I can really say is just that I support her decision because she has to do whatever's right for herself.
Yeah.
But I don't really know. I don't know all the intricacies of it. And frankly, I kind of try and stay out of that stuff.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You could focus on more important things like your lines and training.
Yeah, not missing my flight.
Yeah, exactly.
But Mount. I actually just died in the show. The season finale, I was poisoned by my counterpart.
Oh, God damn it!
Yeah. It was pretty good though. I watched it. We rehearsed. That was one very rare experience where we got the scripts early, and they were very well written. And Rachel and I, my counterpart in it, we rehearsed that stuff for like a week prior, which is something that you just never get in television.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But Batwoman was cool. Batwoman was a great experience for me.
Did it change anything for you? Did you notice that you were getting like more noticed and kind of loved by the comic book side fandom?
I feel like that's just starting. Even in the finale, I've done 15 or 16 episodes of it, and no one ever really knew what to think of my character. I think it started out, and I just seemed like this kind of abusive brother that was killing people, and over the course of they did a really cool, for network television, the way that they wrote for me was not very networky. It was really exciting and cool. And in the end, I think it's a story about trauma and abuse, and I think that I came to love my character, and I think that audiences did. They are now too. I'm definitely like memes are just like popping out like nobody's business right now. I am a meme.
That means you've arrived when you're a meme. That's pretty huge.
Yeah. It's been cool.
Yeah, and I think that it's really great that there are more opportunities in the comic book genre, like what they did with Joker to address mental illness, to also kind of use it as a platform to address greater issues, which I think exist in the world, and make people feel like they're, like when you were watching Roswell, now there's some kid watching Mouse and Ruby and going, I don't feel so alone now, and I think it's a great, I think it's a great platform to do that, because you could reach so many people.
That's interesting. That's interesting that we are. Is that a kind of a new thing? That's more of a new thing, isn't it? Like, I guess we.
Yeah. And I think that's why, I feel bad because Ruby kind of like quit Twitter because she was getting so much hate on there. And I think it's wrong for, if you're okay, I get it. Like, you're a comic book fan, you want things to be a certain way, but we're living in different times. We're living in times that are changing, and we should have platforms that could reach the greatest amount of people to address issues. Yeah. Whether you feel like the person's right or wrong for the part, they shouldn't be shamed off of Twitter or bullied off of Twitter. And I'm actually reading a great book called "So You've Been Publicly Shamed," about a lot of cases of people who've been online shamed and just their careers have been ended. And it's crazy. But I think that, going back to the original point, is I think that it is good that comic books that are adapted into live action material are being used to address these things. X-Men did it in the 60s. With the civil rights. It was an allegory for civil rights. Yeah. So I feel like there is a responsibility for Bill, and I appreciate that out of all the universe, and that DC has, they said Batwoman, we're going to make it specifically, I don't want to say queer based, but queer based, and I think that is fucking awesome. You know what I mean?
That's very cool. It's really cool. And I think that delving into the mind and sympathy, you go to, you talk to people on death row. I mean, they all talk about their childhoods. And given all the times I've interviewed people on death row, but like Columbine and all that stuff, I mean, we really have to look at that shit. And that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that it's kind of a more new. We're delving into mental illness, and we're delving into the mind in that way now. Yeah. Thank you, Joker.
Yeah, and I think that it's great that DC is kind of like they're leaders in that platform. You know what I mean? They're the ones saying, all right, let's talk about these issues. Let's talk about the issues at hand and use this platform to reach a massive amount of people. I really love it. I love it. This was great. We've already done almost, we've done an hour and 16 minutes. I feel like you feel good. I feel like we covered a lot. Do you feel like we covered a lot?
No, that was really fun. I had a great time.
Yeah, we did good. What's that?
Yeah. It was just very nice to meet you. I thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Oh my God. So I was like really, I was so excited to meet you, and I'm so glad that we know each other now, because now I won't harass you with emails, but I'll email you once in a while. I'll have friends, East Coast, West Coast friends. So tell people where they can find you besides television, where they can find you on the internet and all that good stuff.
The Sam Littlefield on Instagram. The Sam Littlefield. And you can check out my website, samlittlefield.com.
Well, this was great. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this.
This was totally great. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time out. Stay safe.
You too. All right. Signing off.
Sayonara.